Wisdom seekers, welcome back. Have you ever stood across from someone, maybe a colleague, a friend, or even a stranger, and felt the unspoken energy between you? It's subtle, almost intangible, but you know something deeper is at play. You can sense it. Their thoughts, their emotions, the truth behind their words. But how do you read this? How do you make sense of these signals that, at first glance, appear hidden, cloaked in the guise of a smile or a well-rehearsed line? Today, we're going beyond words. We're diving into the very essence of what it means to read anyone. It's not just about body language or facial expressions. It's about uncovering the 10 undeniable signs that reveal more about a person than they could ever tell you directly. Imagine this. You're standing at a precipice. A vast ocean of human behavior stretches out before you, and you alone hold the key to deciphering the subtle currents beneath the surface. The great Stoic philosophers of old, Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius, spent their lives observing not only themselves but those around them. They understood that to know others is in essence a mirror of knowing oneself. And that's exactly what we're going to explore today. Sign 1. The stillness beneath the storm. We begin with the first and perhaps the most vital sign of all, stillness. It's the calm beneath the surface, the measure of a person's inner stability, no matter the chaos that surrounds them. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius often wrote about the need for tranquility amidst the noise of life. He believed that true power comes not from controlling the outside world, but from mastering the inner one. Have you ever been in a room full of people and noticed that one person who seems unaffected by the rush, by the noise, or by the distractions? They stand out not because they demand attention, but because they seem untouched by the chaos. Their energy feels grounded. This is the sign of inner stillness, a mark of someone who has cultivated control over their emotions. Stillness is not to be confused with passivity or inaction. It's an active, deliberate calm, a mastery of oneself. Picture a lake on a windy day. The surface may ripple and wave, but deep below, the water remains undisturbed. This is the essence of a still person. How do you recognize this stillness in someone else? Look beyond the surface interactions. Pay attention to how they respond in moments of stress. Do they lose their temper? Or are they capable of holding their ground with an unshakable calm? When life throws its challenges, and believe me, it always will, the people who possess this stillness will not waver. They may experience setbacks, but their foundation remains firm. Consider the following scenario. You're in a heated argument with a colleague. Tempers flare, voices rise, accusations are thrown across the table like weapons. But then, there's that one person, calm, composed. They don't raise their voice, they don't rush to defend themselves. They observe, they listen, and when they speak, it's with clarity and purpose. This person is the embodiment of stillness. They've trained themselves to remain centered even when the world around them spirals into chaos. This stillness is not just a sign of strength, it's a sign of profound self-awareness. As Epictetus once said, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. When you meet someone who can remain calm in adversity, they are revealing a deep well of inner resilience. This is someone who knows themselves, and that knowledge grants them the ability to navigate the external world with a quiet confidence that most can only envy. But what if the person in front of you doesn't have this stillness? What if they are quick to anger or easily flustered? It's important to recognize that this isn't a judgment of character, it's an insight into their state of mind. People who lack stillness are often fighting inner battles, whether it's anxiety, insecurity, or fear. They are reacting to the storms within them rather than mastering them. Now here's where the real wisdom lies. Understanding that this stillness, or lack thereof, tells you everything you need to know about someone's internal landscape. The person who remains calm has likely spent years cultivating inner discipline. They faced their fears, confronted their weaknesses, and built themselves up from within. On the other hand, those who are easily shaken have yet to fully confront themselves. Stillness, then, becomes a window into a person's soul. It's one of the clearest signs of a mind that has mastered itself. And when you can recognize this in others, you gain an invaluable insight into their character. But how can you develop this skill within yourself? You see, reading others always begins with reading yourself. Marcus Aurelius advised practicing self-examination daily. At the end of each day, he would ask himself, what did I do well? What could I improve? This is not a passive exercise. It's a conscious effort to cultivate stillness, to remove the unnecessary distractions that pull us away from our center. By practicing this daily reflection, you begin to notice patterns in your reactions. You start to identify the moments when you are pulled away from your inner stillness and can correct course. Over time, this practice strengthens your ability to remain calm under pressure, allowing you to radiate the kind of stillness that others will notice in you. In our noisy, fast-paced world, stillness has become a rare and precious quality. And those who possess it are often the ones who can navigate life with the greatest ease, both for themselves and for those around them. Sign 2. The eyes as the gateway to the soul. The eyes, as the ancient philosophers often said, are the windows to the soul. This is more than just a poetic phrase, it's a deep truth about human connection. When you look into someone's eyes, you are not just observing their outer appearance. You are, in a very real sense, peering into their inner world. Plato believed that the eyes were directly connected to the soul, serving as the bridge between the internal and external worlds. He wasn't far from the truth. Today, neuroscience backs up this ancient wisdom. The eyes can convey emotions faster than any words. Micro-expressions, those fleeting, almost imperceptible movements of the muscles around the eyes, can reveal everything from joy to fear to contempt. But how do you read this? How do you unlock the secrets hidden in someone's gaze? Start by focusing on the subtleties. When someone is truly engaged in conversation, their eyes will reflect it. They will maintain direct eye contact, their pupils may dilate, and you'll sense an openness in their expression. This is the look of trust, of genuine interest. Conversely, if someone is uncomfortable, their eyes will dart around the room. They might blink more than usual, or their gaze will seem vacant, as though their mind is somewhere else. Think about the last time you had a conversation with someone who wasn't really listening. You could feel it, couldn't you? Their eyes gave them away before they even opened their mouth to respond. There's a certain hollowness in the gaze of someone who is distracted or disinterested. This ability to read the eyes is an invaluable skill, and it doesn't stop at surface-level observations. There are deeper layers to uncover. For instance, when someone is lying, their eyes may shift rapidly, or they might avoid eye contact altogether. But some people are skilled at hiding this. Professional liars, or those who have spent years manipulating others, can maintain steady eye contact without flinching. That's why it's important to combine the reading of the eyes with other signs, like body language and tone of voice, which we'll explore further in this video. But let's focus on the eyes for now. There's a term called eye blocking that psychologists often refer to. When someone feels threatened or is about to deceive you, they might unconsciously blink excessively, rub their eyes, or even close them for longer than usual. This is a defense mechanism, an attempt to block out the uncomfortable reality they're facing. On the flip side, people who are excited or happy often exhibit eye shining. Their eyes light up, sometimes even sparkling, as they talk about something they're passionate about. It's as though the joy within them radiates outward, making their eyes brighter and more animated. This brings us to another profound philosophical observation. The eyes not only reveal emotions but also intentions. As Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "He who fights with monsters should be careful lest he thereby become a monster. And if you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you." Nietzsche's words here highlight a deep truth about the power of intention and focus. The more you fixate on something, the more that intention seeps into your very being. When you look into someone's eyes, what are they focused on? Is there a sharpness, a clarity in their gaze that reveals a mind honed by purpose? Or is their stare vacant, perhaps distracted by the thousand fleeting desires that dominate an undisciplined life? When you master the art of reading the eyes, you begin to understand not just what someone is feeling, but what drives them. Their motivations, their fears, their desires, all of it is written in that subtle language, waiting to be uncovered. This brings us back to the idea of self-awareness. When you train yourself to observe the eyes of others, you also become more conscious of your own. How often do you avoid eye contact when you're uncomfortable? When you're passionate about something, do you notice how your eyes seem to light up? The more you observe these patterns in yourself, the easier it becomes to recognize them in others. This skill is one that takes time and patience to develop, but once you do, it opens up a whole new world of understanding. You begin to see people not just for what they say, but for who they are, in the purest, most unfiltered sense. You see beyond the masks and facades and into the core of their being. Sign 3. The unspoken language of the body. We've touched on the eyes and inner stillness, but now we turn to one of the most powerful communicators of all, body language. Without saying a word, the body can reveal the truth behind someone's emotions, thoughts, and intentions. Ancient philosophers like Aristotle recognized this when he said, "The soul never thinks without a picture." Our emotions are made visible in the way we carry ourselves, whether through subtle gestures or larger movements. Observe a person's posture. Confident individuals will stand tall, their shoulders back and head lifted high. Their body moves fluidly, occupying space with ease. In contrast, someone insecure might fold into themselves, shrinking as though they are trying to become invisible. This slouched posture speaks volumes about their mental state without a single word being exchanged. Next, notice the hands. Hands especially are incredibly expressive. Anxious individuals tend to fidget, adjust their clothing, or tap their fingers, revealing discomfort. On the contrary, open palms signify honesty and a readiness to engage. When someone's hands rest calmly or move deliberately, they project control and confidence. There's also foot positioning. If a person's feet are pointed towards you during a conversation, they are engaged and focused on you. If their feet point away or towards the door, it could signal that they are mentally or emotionally ready to exit the interaction. Understanding microexpressions, the brief flickers of true emotions that pass over someone's face before they can hide them, is another crucial skill. A flash of anger, fear, or joy, even if it lasts less than a second, can give you deeper insight into what a person is truly feeling. These moments are the raw, unfiltered truth of someone's emotional state. But remember, body language can be contradictory at times. A person might smile while their arms are crossed or legs are pointed away. This mix of signals requires careful observation to decode the truth behind these cues. Rather than relying on one gesture, look for patterns or clusters of behaviors that reinforce one another. Body language is deeply influenced by culture and context. While some gestures are universal, others may have different meanings in various cultures. For example, direct eye contact might be seen as respectful in some places, while in others, it could be a sign of aggression or defiance. As you practice reading body language, consider these cultural nuances to avoid misinterpretation. In conclusion, body language offers a silent narrative in every interaction. The body speaks its own language, one that, with enough practice, you can learn to read as fluently as any spoken word. Seneca said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And often, it is the silent suffering we witness in the bodies of others that tells us more than their words ever could. Sign 4. The dance of tone and pitch. As important as the body is, the voice carries its own set of secrets. Every word we speak is laced with emotional undertones that go beyond the literal meaning of the words themselves. It's not just what people say, but how they say it that can tell you everything. Pythagoras believed in the harmony of the universe, saying, "There is geometry in the humming of the strings, there is music in the spacing of the spheres." In human interaction, our voices reflect a similar harmony or dissonance. The tone, pitch, and rhythm of speech are like notes in a symphony, each one giving away subtle clues about the speaker's emotional state. Tone is perhaps the most revealing element of speech. A person can say "I'm fine," but depending on the tone, whether it's light and cheerful or flat and bitter, it can mean anything from contentment to frustration. The emotional charge behind the tone transforms the meaning of words entirely. Listen closely for this emotional layer, as it can often tell you much more than the words alone. Pitch is another key aspect. When someone is anxious or excited, their pitch often rises, making their voice sound higher. A low pitch, on the other hand, can project calmness, authority, or even anger. Sudden shifts in pitch within a conversation can indicate discomfort or stress, while a steady pitch often shows confidence and composure. There's also the pace of someone's speech to consider. People who are nervous or unsure may rush through their sentences, while those who are relaxed or in control often speak more slowly, giving their words weight. The rhythm and flow of speech can reveal whether someone is trying to dominate the conversation, persuade you, or cover up their own insecurity. What's particularly telling is when the voice doesn't match the words being spoken. Someone might say something neutral or polite, but their voice trembles or their pitch rises slightly, indicating that there's something they're not fully comfortable revealing. This mismatch is one of the clearest signs that their true feelings are being masked, whether consciously or unconsciously. In some cases, silence speaks even louder than words. A well-timed pause, a hesitation before answering, or even an abrupt stop in the middle of a sentence can be more revealing than what comes after. Plato said, "Wise men speak because they have something to say, fools because they have to say something." Silence, when used consciously, can show restraint, thoughtfulness, or unease. But remember, not every vocal pattern can be interpreted the same way. Like body language, vocal expression is influenced by context, personality, and culture. Some people naturally speak faster or slower, or have a naturally high or low pitch, so it's important not to jump to conclusions. Instead, look for changes in their typical speech patterns, especially when they're discussing sensitive or personal topics. When you combine this awareness of tone and pitch with what you've learned about body language, you become attuned to the full range of communication. Together, these signs can give you a clearer picture of someone's internal state, allowing you to read between the lines of their words and understand the deeper truth. Sign 5. The subtle tells of facial expression. Moving beyond the voice and body, we now delve into perhaps one of the most expressive parts of the human experience: facial expressions. The face is a canvas of emotions, often painting feelings we might not even want to acknowledge ourselves. Consider this. How often have you seen someone claim they're fine, yet their face tells a different story? The furrowing of their brow, the tightening of their lips, or the slight flare of their nostrils all give away the lie. These micro-expressions, brief, involuntary facial movements, often expose hidden emotions like anger, sadness, or fear. In his Meditations, Marcus Aurelius noted, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." When we think about facial expressions, we realize that often they reveal the obstacles someone is facing inside. A person may try to hide their struggle, but their face, without conscious control, reveals the truth. What's especially fascinating about facial expressions is their universality. Studies have shown that people across all cultures express basic emotions in the same way. A smile signals happiness, a frown signals sadness, and narrowed eyes often signal suspicion or concentration. These basic expressions are shared by humanity as a whole, making them a universal language of sorts. However, people often try to hide their true feelings by controlling their facial expressions. But here's the key. While people can fake a smile, it's very difficult to fake the small, subtle details of an expression. For instance, a genuine smile reaches the eyes, creating small wrinkles or crow's feet around them. A fake smile, on the other hand, only engages the mouth, leaving the eyes unaffected and betraying the person's true feelings. Another example is the expression of disgust. If someone feels disgusted, their nose may wrinkle slightly, or their upper lip may pull up just a bit, even if they're trying to maintain a neutral face. These micro-expressions are fleeting, but they're reliable indicators of someone's true feelings. Facial expressions can also be complex and layered. Sometimes a person might experience conflicting emotions, and their face will show this mix. For example, someone might smile, but there's a hint of sadness or tension in their eyes or mouth. This combination of expressions, joy mixed with sorrow, excitement tinged with fear, can tell you that the person is feeling multiple emotions at once, perhaps unsure of which one to fully embrace. Recognizing these complex expressions takes practice, but it offers a deep insight into the emotional landscape of the person you're observing. Once again, it's important to note that these expressions don't exist in isolation. They should be read in conjunction with other signs like body language, voice, and context. Ultimately, Facial expressions provide a wealth of information. They are the most immediate and accessible way to read someone's emotions, often more reliable than their words. The face is an open book, if you know how to read it. Sign 6, the power of touch and proximity. We've explored the face, body, and voice. Now let's talk about something more primal, more instinctual: touch and proximity. These two aspects of human interaction have the power to build trust or signal danger, to comfort or unsettle, and they're often less consciously controlled than words or facial expressions. The philosopher Epictetus once said, "We are not disturbed by things, but by the view we take of them." This rings especially true when we consider how close we allow others to come to us and how touch can change the dynamic of an interaction. Proximity is about space, the invisible boundary each person has that marks their comfort zone. People will instinctively adjust their distance depending on how they feel about you or the situation. A person who feels threatened or uncomfortable will step back, increasing the space between you. Someone who feels close to you, whether emotionally or romantically, will naturally close the gap. This is a kind of unspoken communication that happens in every social situation. There are several zones of proximity: intimate, personal, social, and public. Intimate space is reserved for those closest to us, like family members, close friends, or romantic partners. If someone enters this space without invitation, it can feel like a violation. On the other hand, if someone allows you into their intimate space, it's a clear sign of trust and closeness. Touch amplifies these dynamics even further. A light touch on the arm, a handshake, or even a pat on the back can all convey different emotions: reassurance, dominance, affection, or control. But not all touches are created equal. The meaning of touch is heavily context-dependent and can vary based on culture, relationship, and situation. Take, for example, a simple handshake. A firm, steady handshake can project confidence and trustworthiness, while a limp handshake might signal insecurity or disinterest. A handshake that lingers too long can feel invasive, while one that is too brief might seem dismissive. Touch can also be used strategically. A person who is trying to influence or persuade you might touch your shoulder or arm to build a sense of connection. This tactic taps into the innate human need for physical contact, subtly drawing you into a closer emotional rapport. Be aware of these signals, as they can reveal not only the feelings of the person initiating the touch, but also their intentions. At the same time, observe your own reactions to touch and proximity. If you find yourself stepping back or tensing up when someone comes too close, this is your body's way of signaling discomfort or distrust. Conversely, when you instinctively lean in or reach out to touch someone, it's a sign that you feel comfortable and connected. But, as always, these signs should be interpreted with care. Cultural differences play a huge role in how people view touch and personal space. In some cultures, physical contact is a natural part of conversation, while in others, it is reserved for only the most intimate relationships. Understanding these cultural nuances is key to accurately interpreting touch and proximity. In the end, both touch and proximity are powerful tools in human interaction. They reveal not only how we feel about others, but also how we perceive the space between us, emotionally and physically. By paying attention to these subtle cues, you gain a deeper understanding of the connections people are trying to make or avoid. Sign 7, the weight of silence. While we focused heavily on what people do, their body language, facial expressions, and speech, there's another equally important element that often goes unnoticed: silence. Silence can be more revealing than words, more powerful than any gesture. It can signal discomfort, anger, or reflection, depending on the context. The great philosopher Lao Tzu said, "Silence is a source of great strength," and indeed it is. In a world full of noise and constant communication, silence stands out. It's the gaps between words that often carry the most weight. Consider how a person reacts in a moment of silence during a conversation. Do they rush to fill it, speaking rapidly to avoid the discomfort? Or do they sit comfortably in the quiet, allowing the silence to linger? The difference can tell you much about their state of mind. Silence in response to a question is particularly revealing. If someone takes a long pause before answering, it can signal several things. They may be carefully considering their response, or they may be uncomfortable with the question and are trying to buy time. In some cases, A pause can indicate that they are about to lie or evade the truth. The longer the silence, the more likely it is that the person is grappling with how to respond honestly. However, silence doesn't always indicate negative emotions. Sometimes, silence is a sign of respect or deep thought. When someone listens in silence, nodding occasionally, it shows that they are fully engaged in the conversation. Plato said, "Wise men speak because they have something to say, fools because they have to say something." In moments of silence, the wise allow space for reflection and understanding. Awkward silences are a different matter. These moments of tension can often reveal hidden discomfort or conflict. You'll notice people shifting in their seats, avoiding eye contact, or nervously fidgeting. This kind of silence usually indicates that something important is being left unsaid, whether it's an unresolved issue, a hidden feeling, or unspoken resentment. In contrast, comfortable silence between people who are close is a sign of trust and familiarity. When two people can sit together in silence without feeling the need to fill the air with words, it shows a deep connection. This kind of silence is often found in long-term relationships or close friendships, where words are no longer necessary to communicate. In moments of conflict, silence can also be used strategically. A person might use silence to assert control or dominance in a conversation. By refusing to respond, they force the other person to fill the space, often causing the other to reveal more than they intended. This is a common tactic in negotiations, where silence is used to create pressure and force concessions. The beauty of silence is that it forces us to confront ourselves and the other person. Without the distraction of words, we are left with the raw emotions and thoughts that often go unspoken. It's in these quiet moments that true understanding can emerge, if we're paying attention. Sign 8. The patterns of consistency and inconsistency. People reveal themselves not just through individual actions or words, but through patterns of behavior over time. Consistency, or lack thereof, can be one of the most telling signs of a person's true character. As Heraclitus observed, character is destiny. It's in our repeated actions that our true nature is revealed. When someone is consistent in their actions, words, and behaviors, it shows integrity and reliability. For instance, if a person consistently keeps their promises, arrives on time, and follows through on their commitments, you can trust that they are dependable. Their consistency reflects an inner alignment between their values and their actions. In contrast, inconsistency is often a red flag. A person who says one thing but does another, or who changes their behavior depending on who they're with, can be difficult to trust. This lack of consistency suggests that they may be hiding their true intentions or feelings. For example, someone who is warm and friendly one day, but cold and distant the next, might be struggling with internal conflicts, or might be trying to manipulate the situation to their advantage. But inconsistency doesn't always mean dishonesty. Sometimes it can signal that a person is struggling with their emotions or is going through a period of change. Life is fluid, and people's behaviors can shift as they grow or encounter new experiences. However, when these shifts are drastic or frequent, it's worth paying attention to the underlying reasons. When observing someone, take note of how often their actions align with their words. If a person frequently contradicts themselves, promising one thing but doing another, this is a sign that they may not be entirely trustworthy. This could be a result of forgetfulness, lack of discipline, or intentional deceit. In any case, it's important to track these inconsistencies to get a clearer picture of who they really are. Another form of inconsistency can be seen in emotional reactions. A person who overreacts to small issues but remains calm in more serious situations might have difficulty managing their emotions. This can be a sign of deeper emotional instability or unresolved internal conflicts. Consistency is not about perfection. Everyone has moments where they slip up or make mistakes. What matters is the overall pattern. Is this person generally reliable, or are their actions unpredictable? Over time, these patterns will give you a clear sense of their character. Sign 9. The intentions hidden in words. We often take words at face value, but there's so much more to them than just their literal meaning. Words are carriers of intent, and by carefully listening to how people phrase things, you can uncover the true motives behind their speech. As Friedrich Nietzsche once said, all things are subject to interpretation. Whichever interpretation prevails at a given time is a function of power and not truth. Words are powerful tools, and people use them with intention, whether they realize it or not. The way someone chooses their words, the metaphors they use, and even the hesitations or emphases can reveal what they truly feel or want. Listening carefully for these clues allows you to get to the heart of someone's intentions, even when they're trying to obscure them. One of the most telling signs in speech is word choice. For instance, people who frequently use the word should might be motivated by obligation or guilt, feeling that they're constantly bound by expectations. On the other hand, those who say, I want to, often feel more in control of their lives and choices. The difference between I have to and I choose to is subtle but significant, signaling a shift in mindset from victimhood to empowerment. Pay attention to the modifiers people use, such as maybe, sort of, or kind of. These qualifiers often signal uncertainty or a desire to avoid commitment. For example, someone who says, I might be able to do that, is subtly indicating that they don't want to be held to that statement. It's a soft way of avoiding accountability while still appearing agreeable on the surface. Another revealing aspect of speech is the use of absolutes. People who frequently use words like always and never might be operating from a place of extreme emotion, oversimplifying a situation to fit their narrative. Absolutes often mask a more complex reality, one that the speaker may not be ready to confront. If someone claims, you never listen to me, it's unlikely that never is true, but it reflects their emotional experience of feeling unheard. Closely tied to word choice is tone, which we've already explored. But here, it's important to focus on how tone shapes the meaning of words. A question phrased as, are you sure you want to do that, can sound supportive or condescending, depending on the tone. A compliment like, that's a nice idea, can feel genuine or dismissive, depending on how it's delivered. Another aspect to consider is the use of metaphor and imagery. People often describe their emotions and experiences through metaphors that reveal deeper truths. For example, someone who says, I feel like I'm drowning in work, is conveying a sense of being overwhelmed, but they're also revealing how helpless or trapped they feel. A metaphor gives you access to the underlying emotion that might not be immediately obvious from their surface-level words. And don't overlook repetition. When people repeat certain words or phrases, they're often signaling that those ideas are particularly important to them. For example, if someone frequently says, I just want things to be fair, you can infer that fairness is a core value for them. Repetition highlights the issues they're fixated on, consciously or unconsciously. It's also crucial to pay attention to what is not being said. Sometimes, people avoid talking about certain topics or dodge questions because they don't want to reveal too much. This can be just as revealing as the words they do choose to share. A classic tactic in misdirection is answering a question with another question or changing the subject entirely. These evasions can give away discomfort, secrecy, or hidden motives. In conversations, people will often use indirect speech to soften their intentions. Rather than saying, I want you to do this, they might say, it would be great if this could happen. This indirectness can be a way of avoiding confrontation or appearing too demanding, but it also shows a reluctance to take ownership of their request. In short, words are a double-edged sword. They can reveal truth or obscure it, depending on how they're wielded. The key to reading people's words lies in paying attention not just to what they say, but how they say it. By listening for word choice, tone, metaphor, and silence, you can peel back the layers of their speech and uncover the intentions hidden underneath. Sign 10. The influence of habits and routines. If you really want to understand someone, look at their habits and routines. These are the unconscious patterns that shape their daily lives, reflecting their priorities, values, and even fears. As Aristotle famously said, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. People's habits are like fingerprints, unique to each individual, but revealing much about their core identity. Habits are often the behaviors we perform without thinking, making them some of the most honest aspects of a person's character. By observing someone's routine, you can learn what truly matters to them, far beyond what they claim to value. Start by noticing how they spend their time. Do they make time for self-care, physical health, and personal development, or do they fill their days with distractions, procrastination, or unhealthy habits? A person who regularly sets aside time for reading, exercising, or meditation values growth and well-being. On the other hand, someone who habitually avoids such activities might be struggling with motivation, discipline, or underlying emotional issues. Routines also reveal a lot about a person's sense of control over their life. A well-structured routine often suggests that a person feels in control of their circumstances, while chaotic or inconsistent routines might indicate a lack of direction or inner turmoil. This doesn't mean that spontaneity is a sign of weakness, far from it. But even in spontaneity, there's often a pattern that emerges over time. Pay attention to rituals of work and productivity. Some people are methodical in their approach to work, carefully planning out their days and sticking to a routine. This discipline shows a strong internal compass and a commitment to achieving their goals. Others may have a more scattered approach, diving into projects with bursts of energy but struggling to maintain consistency. This can reveal their emotional state, whether they are passionate but easily distracted, or perhaps overwhelmed by the magnitude of their tasks. Another key area to observe is habits of communication. Does the person regularly check in with friends and family, or do they tend to isolate themselves? Frequent, thoughtful communication shows a person who values relationships and connection, while someone who habitually withdraws might be dealing with feelings of loneliness, depression, or simply a more introverted nature. The way someone communicates or avoids communication can tell you a lot about how they manage their emotional landscape. Self-care routines are another revealing area. Does the person take care of their body, mind, and emotional well-being? Regular exercise, healthy eating, meditation, or other forms of self-care indicate a person who values themselves and their health. Neglecting these areas, on the other hand, can be a sign of stress, self-doubt, or unresolved inner conflict. Even something as simple as how a person maintains their living space, whether it's organized or chaotic, can reflect their mental state. It's also crucial to look at habits of consumption, what they read, watch, and listen to. Are they consuming material that challenges them, helps them grow, or feeds their curiosity? Or do they gravitate towards mindless entertainment, using it as a form of escape? A person's media habits often mirror their internal world. Those who seek out thoughtful, enriching content are usually seeking to improve themselves, while those who constantly consume distractions might be trying to avoid something deeper. Perhaps one of the most telling habits is how someone handles failure and setbacks. Do they have a habit of giving up when things get tough, or do they persevere through adversity? A person who consistently bounces back from failure, learning from their mistakes and trying again, demonstrates resilience and a growth mindset. On the other hand, someone who habitually avoids challenges or crumbles under pressure might struggle with fear, insecurity, or perfectionism. Finally, observe how someone approaches change. Do they embrace new opportunities and challenges, or do they cling to the familiar, resisting any shift in their routine? A person who welcomes change is often adaptable, curious, and open to growth, while someone who fears change may be dealing with deeper insecurities or unresolved issues. In the end, habits are like the invisible threads that weave a person's life together. They may seem small or insignificant, but they form the foundation of who we are and how we navigate the world. By paying attention to someone's habits, you can gain a profound understanding of their inner life, what drives them, what they fear, and what they value most.